Okay, so Nick and I are sitting side by side, separated by a cubicle partition. So pretty funny. It's almost like he's in another room. I could pretend you're in Hawaii or something, Nick. Okay. So I'll set the scene. First of all, thank you so much, Mike, for inviting us to come on. And we're totally psyched to be able to talk about our MMA challenge that we presented at CEIC 2012. It was a good time. And some of the people I see listed over here attending now, Nick, some of them were in our challenge. So I hope that they don't give things away by typing into the chat window. That would be totally uncool. But Corey was there. Anyone else? I was expecting to see Dave Nides. Dave Nides was a participant in the challenge at CEIC. Waiting to see who else chimes in. There you go. Oh, I'm sorry, Corey won. Corey won. So our idea for putting together the MMA challenge was really to create a system, install a system, act as the user, and then compromise the system, act as the attacker, and then flip it over and do the incident response on the system, picking out pieces that we could ask people to find using network analysis skills, like analyzing a network capture, also parsing memory, and hitting the host image that we provided. So it was really only 90 minutes to really work on this and to pick out, well, we'll show you the scoreboard, what we asked them to do. So we didn't have much time to talk about analysis or behind the scenes because we wanted to give them as much time as possible to work on the scenario. So I really value this opportunity to discuss what we learned when we were setting it up, tools and techniques that we picked up. I certainly learned a lot. So Nick is going to describe the scenario to you. There you go.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Roby. I'm new to the community, and yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun out there in Summerlin this at CEIC. So the situation was that we presented to everybody is the security team at this company called Crazy Chinchilla Inc. has recently identified a system that was compromised, and we told them that Rick Bloom is the executive. His computer was called Battlecade. We gave them his IP address. And then we told them basically, here's what happened. The corporate security, they took a network packet capture from the IDS after, when they noticed abnormal traffic. And then incident response was also performed on the system. So they grabbed memory capture and they grabbed a hard drive image. So that's what we gave the students. So we gave the students, we gave everybody, all the attendees, we gave all the attendees a copy of the hard drive, the memory capture, a network packet capture, and we also pre-computed a couple things like a log to timeline for everyone. And so here was the goal that we told them. We said, your goal is to, provided with all of this data, we want you to answer a number of fairly difficult or easy questions, and whoever gets the most points the quickest wins. And they usually got something cool, right? You want to talk about the scoreboard? You guys probably want to blow this up full screen if you want to see it and anything in that last thing. Hey, Mike, let's
go. As you're looking at the scoreboard, some of these may seem superfluous to an intrusion. Our machine was acting up on the network, so there are reasons we were hitting it, and some of them you'll see directly relate to questions, and others, as you look at the bonus column, they were more like, can you find this, like the Easter eggs, and can you find this really challenging artifact that no one has ever looked for before, like the solitaire winning percentage average, which I find totally valid if you're doing an employee investigation on productivity. And Nick was like, yeah, totally. People need to know where that is and how to parse it. So yeah, some of them were very unique and crazy. And again, that was the bonus category. But we'll be walking through some of these. You've uploaded the slide deck so they can kind of refer back on their own time. Is that right? Excellent. So yeah, Nick's going to start off with the first category, the network analysis.
All right. So the idea was with the network analysis portion is the people who are attending, they were given this network packet capture, and the idea is they're given this gigantic stack. They go, okay, this computer is compromised, we think, and then they're supposed to find out what happened and use that to help them narrow down or funnel down, stuff for maybe memory analysis, and then finally, when they get to the hard drive, they're very targeted and they know what they're looking for. So that was sort of the goal. So part one was network packet forensics. So we got a really nice quote that Alissa found from MMA. All of our quotes are MMA themed, so everybody loves headbutts. All right. So some of the tools we were going to use is Wireshark, NetWitness we ended up not showing, and Network Miner, which is a tool that I think anybody who's doing network packet analysis is really like one of your best friends for quickly determining useful information. So we'll show you what we can find with all those. So we're going to start with the network packet capture and work backwards. So we were told the packet capture was taken just before the IDS identified malicious traffic coming from Mr. Bloom's computer. So if Mr. Bloom had malicious traffic coming from his computer, we want to find out why. So we're going to start at the end of the packet capture, find what triggered the IDS, and then look a little bit before that and see what's going on. All right, so in this case, I'm going to go full screen and show you does anybody have preferences? You want to see the slides or live? Well, I want to vote. Okay. It's not that exciting. Wireshark's not that cool live, but we can do it. So you can watch along. All right, here we go. We'll do it live. Okay. All right. Let me see. Let me share my screen. How do I?
Okay. I've got two shares up.
Okay.
So you can actually just share your screen.
I'm sharing my screen right now. Yeah. Let's see. All right. So you can everybody see my screen right now, or can anybody see it? All right. Yeah, I can see it. All right. So here's a great big packet capture, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And so I say, when you've got a lot of packets, you've really got to narrow down what's interesting. So we're going to start all the way at the end when we said that there was something going on. And already I can see all of these right here. This who has 172.16.100.134, and then we see 135 and 136 and 137 and 138 and 139, and we keep going down, and we see it systematically probing what looks like every computer within a network space. And then we see a bunch of weird stuff going to Kazaa, and then more probes. And all of these are ARPs. And what this is actually, this is called an ARP scan, and it's typically used when a malicious agent is going to scan for new computers on the network to exploit. Typically, it'll be initiated with some sort of a network scan. And an ARP scan is a very, very common precursor to an actual exploit. So I see this ARP scan going on. So I would say this right here is a very strong indicator of this is probably what caused the IDS to pop. So I also see all of this traffic right here. So the person who is scanning is this 154. Can we see that? 154, 154. When I say 154, that's the last octet of the IP address. So that's the one that I'm going to hone in on. And then we also see in these Kazaa packets, it's all 154 talking to some computer out on the internet, 184.17.251.43. And so I don't know what that is, so I just like to usually cheat and right-click, and I go to Follow TCP Stream. And when I do that, what it's going to do is it's going to pull out all of those packets from this packet capture and then show them to me. And then it'll highlight each side of the conversation as either pink and blue. So the very first thing I see here is right here where it says this program cannot be run in DOS mode. Right there. That's called a DOS stub. I see MZ right here. That's the MZ header. Somebody's already ahead of me, and they found a PE header. That's awesome. I'm glad. This is the right crowd. People who love this kind of stuff. But the first thing we see is an executable being transferred across the network. That's usually a bad sign. Because, I mean, if you had downloaded it over the internet, if you had downloaded it over HTTP, we might have seen like if you download from his email, that would have been one thing. But this is straight across the wire. So then we're going down, and most of this is not readable to a human. And it's all being pushed. So we don't know exactly what all of this is yet. crazy sauce. All right. And I'm not going to show you the entire packet because it's pretty huge, but if we scroll down, you can see a whole lot of data. Looks like some Windows function calls. And then we see like a bunch of blue data, and then pink. And so pink is the other side of the conversation. So blue data, and then we see pink, and then blue, and then pink. And what that is, that's the conversation, and we can't see it. And the reason why is this is actually encrypted with SSL. Anyways, let me go back to the slides before I get too far ahead of myself. How do we do this? Where did the document go? Okay.
Hold on, what we'll do...
Okay. All right, here we go. Back. All right. Cool. All right. So another thing we can do is with Wireshark, we can go to statistics, and we can go to endpoints, and we can actually search by which IPs are sending the most traffic. And that's one nice thing we can do. And then we see here, the IPs that are sending the most traffic is 172.16.100.154, and that was what we told the students. That's what we told the audience, that was Mr. Bloom's IP address. So he was sending the most packets, and then the second most number of packets is from this public IP address 184.17.whatever, and then another one from 94. So those are our top talkers, and those are the ones we're probably interested in. So we can actually make a filter with Wireshark and limit what we see, so we don't see a lot of the gratuitous ARP requests or we don't see a lot of the junk. And this is a nice filter that'll actually clear out a lot of stuff. And then, I put the question we had is, why is there all this traffic for Kazaa? It's because it just happened to be using a port that Kazaa uses. It might have been intentional to try and blend in with peer-to-peer traffic, which is kind of cool how we dovetail in with FrostWire, stuff we saw earlier. So like I said, follow TCP stream, and there's the MZ headers, the DOS stub, and sections of the executable. If you keep looking through the executable, you'll actually see a whole bunch of references to SSL. I wasn't going to force you to look through the whole packet, so don't worry, or through the whole thing. But there are a whole bunch of references to SSL, and so that will actually answer one of our questions on how to identify what encryption method was used at the time. And then also we can see there's some webmail activity, and so there was a download request at attachment solitaire.exe. And I'll show you a handy trick that you can do in Wireshark. If you have a Wireshark packet capture and you actually want to pull out the data, or you want to pull out the executable files, how do I switch between full screen and this slide? Okay.
Okay, Nick, what you're going to do is use two windows. So this one here,
okay,
you can share your screen on, and then leave the PowerPoint up, and you can just flick between the two.
Thank you.
Sorry, hold on, I'll just stop breaking things for you. There you go.
Okay. All right. So to find out what'll happen with the objects, we can say export. We can say file. I will go to export objects HTTP. If we do that, what it'll do is Wireshark will automatically pull apart all of the files that were transferred in any protocol that it understands. And that's very cool. So if we saw an image or if we saw an executable or something, it's real easy to pull it out. And what we'll do is we'll sort by content type or by the amount of bytes that were sent. Or you can cheat and say save all. And there. Doesn't look very good, does it? We're looking for content type of either octet stream or executable. Oh, here we are. Application force download. And we can say save as. And then we can save it as whatever we want. And then that'll be, one of the files that was downloaded from this mail.crazychinchilla.com. Cool website, huh? All right. I'm going to go back. The other thing we want to do is as we're getting better with forensics, establishing a timeline is really important. This is something that Alyssa's really been pounding into my head. And so what we want to do is talk about, as we're building a file or as we're building a case, find out what time the packet capture start, what time did the ARP scan start. And that way, that's important because when we get to the hard drive, we want to look for what events happen along the same time as the ARP scan started. So it's really important to start correlating that. This is the same thing. When we actually exported that stream from the HTTP stream, turned out our antivirus popped. This was on Alyssa's computer. She had Kaspersky running, and as soon as she opened it up, her antivirus lit up saying, "Hey, this is a Trojan." It was a Trojan. Anyways, has anybody ever used Network Miner before? Network Miner is near and dear to many of your hearts. Nobody likes looking at raw packets. So a few people like looking at raw packets. All right. I can't seem to drag this window around. Yeah, AV did catch this. Okay, Mike, I can't actually drag these windows around. I can't switch back to my computer. Thanks. All right. Okay. So Network Miner is really easy. You just download it and you just run the file right here. It's called Network Miner. And there's a free version and a paid version. The free version does a lot of stuff for you, and the free version does a lot of stuff. And if you need more power, then the commercial version seems like a pretty good idea. All right, it looks like it's loading. There we go. So all we're going to do is open up our file. So this is the folder that we gave everybody, incident response files. I'm just going to go to the network traffic, network capture. And what's nice is it'll parse the whole capture, and it'll identify all of the hosts on the network. It will identify any broadcast, multicast, and it'll even try and identify operating systems based on some characteristics of the packets. It looks like it's incorporated the POP database. And then you'll see it as it's importing this file, you see it's adding mail.crazychinchilla.com. As it identifies host names and whatnot, it'll actually identify a lot about this network. All right. So we're going to let it keep importing. And so, mail.crazychinchilla.com, we can expand that thing out. And it tells us a lot of stuff. It tells us it's a Windows computer based on the TTL, the time to live of each of the packets. It tells us what it was sending, and now look, it's done importing. And we see we've got, web, looks like the Active Directory server, a bunch of computers. Battlecade is the one that we're actually interested in. And yeah, and then here we see a Linux box, and this is that one that we was talking to over Kazaa. So that's really interesting to see. It also notes that it's a VMware MAC address, which is really interesting to see. So we can also look at files that were transported, source, destination, any images that were transferred, and it's really cool if you're used to EnCase and whatnot. You can search for keywords inside of any of the frames, which is really nice. All right. One other nice tab here is called Credentials. Credentials is nice because if you transferred any passwords or if you logged into any web forums using just HTTP and not HTTPS, it'll actually parse apart what happened on what server, and you can get what the username was for all of these and what the password is. So here we see R Bloom logging into Crazy Chinchilla with an extreme password. Okay. Anyway, so this is really good. So we have proof that he logged in, and we can find out exactly what time that happened based on the packet capture details. All right. Okay. All right. So here with Network Miner, I just wanted to highlight a few things: the IP addresses, the operating systems, and then of course the credentials. So what we want to do is we ended up with a timeline. And so the start of the packet capture, we have solitaire.exe when it was downloaded, and then we have the start of the ARP scan. So we're going to take some of these times and some of these file names that we found, and we're going to take that and funnel that into the memory frame.
Yeah, sure I am. Hey, before I start, Nik, can you talk about the intense process of really cleaning this network packet capture up, because it was so noisy? Tell them how much work you had to do to get it to be readable. That's what these guys are actually looking at, packets that are very noisy. So yeah, tell them how many times you had to go through there.
So it's true. Initially we joined this computer to our actual corporate network for a very brief time so that we could get some files downloaded over the internet and to make sure we can update this Rick Bloom's Twitter feed and all kinds of crazy stuff. So we did it for very briefly, but ever since then, it was constantly beaconing out to try and find the old domain controller. It was constantly announcing, like, it was looking for the WPAD, which is it's an automatic proxy that Windows can use. It was beaconing out for tons of stuff, even well after we disconnected it from the network, and we never joined to the domain or anything. So I think I ended up having to clean like 18 different versions of that file before I didn't have any remnants of our old network on there. And I also had to clean off remnants of my computer that was doing the packet capture. Computers are very chatty on the internet. They're very chatty, and a packet capture pulls a lot of data. And it's sometimes very hard to find that needle in a haystack.
Thank you.
But yeah, so
I appreciate you speaking on that.
That was the fun that I had.
Clearly everyone else does too. That's excellent. Okay, so the memory dump. This is, I think, the most fun. And then now Nik's going to be getting my feedback. But parsing it was totally cool. I had a good time. We used Redline. I think I can advance my slides here, can't I? By clicking here? Yeah. So we used volatility from the SIFT. And we also used Redline, and Nik threw in some serious kung fu with the sed, awk, grep, cut. Yeah, so he's going to talk about this. Silence, Hal, silence. You're not going to say anything. But when I did the capture, Nik and I were both the user and the attacker, and then when I went to do the response, he probably could have. If he had been there, everything would have gone straight. But some of the response work, like I did two memory dumps, and the first one actually was with FTK Imager, which I know a lot of people say it's a GUI, and you're actually bringing up a GUI to do the dump, so that actually overwrites a larger portion of memory than if I just run a 132DD or a smaller footprint. But actually, I was happy that I ran it twice. I did a FTK Imager capture and ended up using that one the second time around when I tried to do another dump with 132DD. That one is the one I can't parse at all. No tools are parsing that. So very interesting, and I'm glad I did too. And I wonder, how often people run into this, that their memory dump gets all crapped up. But anyways, I will continue with my slides. The first one we wanted to show you, and I'll be doing a live demo of volatility. The first one is volatility using the SIFT, and I can switch over now, but when we were doing the competition, we had to talk a lot of people through, like opening the SIFT and really getting comfortable pointing the certain variables to the image file, and we showed them how to export so they wouldn't have to continue to type these commands again. So each time you run volatility, you're pretty much telling it what type of image profile you have, what type of a memory dump, or what type of machine the memory dump was pulled from, and you're also pointing to the file that's somewhere on your SIFT workstation or somewhere on a share or removable drive. So that's like the hard part, is getting the syntax right every time. So the best idea ever is to export these and use them as environmental variables. And I've done that actually in my example. So I show you this slide, and then we'll switch over to getting a process list. Yeah, so hold on 1 second. All right. I just tried to do what Nick did. Help me out, Mike. I hope I didn't put you to sleep with that couple minutes. Damn, you're amazing. So, you are in control of the shared screen now. That's not good. There you go. There, now I got it.
You're in control of my screen. I'm not certain. Let me stop sharing that.
Okay.
And then you can
What do I have going on? Can everyone see my screen? You'll have to tell me, Nick, if they're saying yes or no. Okay. Looks good. So, the best way to check environmental variables, you can see. You see that? I can do a clear. Is to do env grep. You know, the other way to see if your environmental variables actually work is to run a quick PS list. So when you're setting these variables, volatility underscore location and volatility underscore profile, like you don't get any feedback. It'll take whatever you give it. And sure enough, you'll like run a PS list against these variables and it won't work, and you'll know why. So that's how you enumerate your variables as you've entered them. And I think I did both tests here. So I'm going to go ahead and run volatility. This is version 2. This is the most recent version of the SIFT. So version 2, so some of the plugins are going to be a bit different. But here we go. This should be fast, quick and easy. PS list. One of the fastest ways to enumerate processes, right? And this is what we showed people real quick. There are some takeaways. Some having to do with timeline, so you can see just that first, here we go, system is going to be when my system actually booted up. Best class to learn about like Windows internals. I was able to grab a packet from Jason Felson's After Hours, like Sands at Night. This isn't a Sands commercial or anything, but the Sands at Night from Securing Windows. He did it, oh my God. So anyways, his packet that he handed out at the Sands at Night had all of the down and dirty on what basic processes are for Windows. So I'm able to tell you, like, you know, not having it memorized, but I'm able to pick out normal and not normal. Like I can tell you, okay, it's cool that I have more than one SCC host. So those are like not going to pop out immediately as problematic for me, but I can see things that we did point out. Like this strange dead process. See, there's no threads or no handles. These are processes that are still in the process list, but they're terminated. You can see that this one is pretty strange. I'm interested in where it's spawning from, if I get any additional information about it. And then later we'll find out that that randomly named executable was the parent. Oh, we can actually see that now, huh? Yeah, so you can tell that this is the PID column or the process identifier column, and this is the parent process identifier. So you can clearly see that, dude, the crazy executable was the parent of notepad.exe, and how often does that happen? I don't think so. So I'm like, what? Something's going on. So now I'm going to take that information about the randomly named process and this instance of Notepad, and I'm going to do some further investigation. And that's what we ended up doing. We also see, and what we saw that was notable in the packet capture, so that kind of helped us out, was solitaire. There's a solitaire process running here. I can grab the PID and find out where it's running from, find out more information about that, and we'll show you the flip side of it. Nick will show you Redline. Again, I know that's going to make you guys laugh, but Redline does an excellent job of graph, like GUI, showing you the GUI of who the parent is of these executables. There's also, you can run volatility and do a PS tree, so you can kind of get, if you're that kind of person that likes dots instead of looking at like GUI graphic representations, you can tell who the parent is of some of these guys. Let's see if, yeah, there's the randomly named executable. And you can clearly see now, based on the hierarchy shown here, that Notepad was spawned from random guy. Other things that might be outliers. Let's see whether we can find any more information about Solitaire. I should have written down that PID as always. Let's see. There's explore.exe. We use that to find out when our user logged in. That would be when his session started on the system. So all of these things underneath explore.exe we would expect to be owned by the user. So we can see FTK Imager, when that started running is when I started dumping memory, or shortly thereafter. And iTunes started by the user, find out more information about that. And we have Solitaire, just kind of a random process not being spawned by explore.exe. So very interesting. While I have control here, I have slides on this, but I'm also going to show you something else that would run straight away would be the net scan. And this image is actually on a Windows 7 machine, Service Pack 0. You might have noticed that when I was showing you on the slide how to set this export variable. So we have the ability to enumerate network connections by running NetScan, the NetScan plugin. If it had been an XP, you'd be running connections to hit like a network connections list, and then you could also do a con scan to scan the memory image for instances of network connections. So those might derive different outputs, but for Windows 7 we have one that does the scan for us, and that's the NetScan. So just so we don't get that huge list of output, because there are a lot of things we're going to find when we run NetScan against this image, I actually took one of the IP addresses that Nick passed on to me and said was notable, right, when he was doing the network analysis, network packet capture analysis. And if you guys remember this one, it was 184.17.251.43. That was like the second highest top talker. So we know that the 172 network was our blooms. The 184 was like, we don't know who this guy is. So let's see what processes are actually being tied to network connections. And that's what we can get from running NetScan against the memory image. Give it some time, give it some time. It was good to run two different tools against the memory image. I found that to be very valuable just based on what was found. So here we are. This is really good information. As you can see, I should have opened it up a little bit more. Demo guides. So we have a random executable, and that's actually a closed connection. But I'm able to find out a little bit more about, okay, who was that random executable talking, well, what was it actually associated with? And it was the connection from our Bloom machine to the 184. So now I'm really getting suspicious. Like, that might be an artifact. Clearly, it wasn't running when I dumped the image, but it was something that had been running in the past. So this NetScan was able to find that connection and present it to me in the output. So that's excellent information. And then I can associate iTunes, which was kind of suspicious in the network packet capture. We can associate iTunes to a specific port and the remote IP address of our 184 guy. Likewise, two instances of Solitaire running on different ports, 443 and 80. And gee, I know that those are two ports that are typically allowed out and often the focus of malware beaconing out. So that's kind of notable. 386 or 3689, if you look it up, it is actually consistent with an iTunes associated network program. So that's kind of cool. That port actually shows up as being iTunes. So if I was looking at establishing some type of legitimacy, it would tie up to something that would be iTunes. Did I say NetTunes? iTunes.
I just like to interject. If you look at the ephemeral ports on 172.16.100.154, you'll notice they're 502.14 and then 502.13. What that means is those connections happened almost at the exact same time, and then the other one is very close to where that is. So that's something that's neat to know as well. those weren't two random
Very
connections.
cool.
They happened in almost at the exact same time.
Let me see. I
Coming
think that's all I'm going to show right
same
now
process.
for that. Let me pull this.
Oh, that's neat. Normally solitaire doesn't do that kind of thing.
Yeah. More heckling. Thanks, Mike. So I can forward through these slides now because you know exactly what I'm talking about. But we do have the ability to run timeliner against the image, and we used that a bit, didn't we, Nick? For putting things in order. And we, of course, wanted to make sure if we didn't know what type of system the image was being pulled from, we could do an image info. So that's just, good to know. Those are good to know commands. We were able to find out when the image was created, and that's what's being highlighted and shown to you. Because we add that to our timeline. Often it's very important to know when the incident responder is on the box, because the attackers, the adversary, whoever this person is that is behind the machine on 184, they're going to be running some of the same tools that we run to respond to the system. So to know when that image was created, we can definitely look through like prefetch on that system and be like, okay, what else was happening at this time? And it was probably the incident responder. We're not so good at taking notes when we're responding to machines yet, and doing a timeline of our activity on a box. So that's kind of cool to know how to get that information, and that is derived from running image info as well. So again, process list was something we hit straight away when we were looking at this image. We ran process list to enumerate processes. These are pointing out the exact same ones when the system came up, tying that into when these processes started, the ones that have died, and then the user logging on. So the malicious activity in this instance actually happened before the user logged in, and that is notable too. Rules out some of our persistence mechanisms that would be associated with the user logging in that I'd love to talk about. So again, I'm showing you active network connections, a very effective way just to grep for the notable IP addresses. You can also sift through the tremendous amount of output as well. So here's something else we did, and then I'll probably, okay, so we knew that iTunes was suspicious going into it. We also saw it in the net scan. We can do a grep through the memory image for iTunes, and these are some of the hits we got. Did you want to speak on this, Nick? Because I know you were actually the
So I'm a big fan of combining lots of tools, and grep's a nice one for helping cull out junk. And so what we did is we grep for iTunes because it was obviously suspicious based on the ports that were open and the connections that was going on. So looking here, it says the registry name was iTunes, the file was itunes.exe, and then what was interesting is the product name said it was an Apache HTTP server. And then it said you get the version number, and we get that it was Apache Bench command line utility, and we also get the creation date. And the creation date is really interesting because it happened pretty much just before we see it up on the system, which means this executable was custom compiled for Rick Bloom's computer, and or that was forged, right? That could have been fake, but typically when you compile a program, you don't fake the created date. So I thought that was very interesting. And then where it says lowercase long path, we see it says it was running out of Windows, System32, iTunes.exe. And for those of you who don't know, that's really an unusual place for iTunes to be running from. Typically, it's like program files, Apple, iTunes, or something like that. So this all indicates that it is not really the iTunes computer.
I did want to throw in, when we were presenting, we used a lot of tools, and I'm like, damn, I wonder if I can do that with Encase. I wonder if I can find some notable information with Encase, because that's kind of old school, how we used to approach it. It's just to drop the image file into Encase and run keyword strings, and sometimes that's highly effective, especially if you have notable keywords and you're just trying to find out if this system was hit, just like the other systems on your network. Those strings will hook you up. So that's what I was able to do here. Actually, because we saw in the network packet capture the solitaire.exe coming from mail.crazychinchilla.com, I ran a keyword search on that. Yeah. I was able to actually get the email, or one of the emails, that actually it was his response back to the person that sent him the attachment, the notable attachment. And that's the attachment is, if you remember, what Nik exported in Wireshark that my antivirus picked up on when I did the same export of objects from Wireshark. So it was neat that I could find the very same thing just using keyword searches in Ncase. So yeah, Ncase Kung Fu is still alive and well, and I do understand that there's end scripts that you can use that will parse memory quite decently. All right, so the heckling will continue. I'm going to turn it over to Nik. He has prepared the red line portion. All right, so
Can you stop sharing your screen? All right. So can everybody see my screen right now? I'm assuming the silence is yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
So
this is thank you very much, everybody. So what we have here is Mandiant Timeline. Mandiant makes a number of really cool tools that I really like. This one, Timeline, basically takes, if you're not familiar with a command line interface, you can be a slacker and use a nice GUI. And basically, what Redline does, is lets you feed it a memory dump just like you would feed volatility. But what it does is it takes it imports the file, and then it looks at the process list, and it looks at all the characteristics of each loaded file. So we see, it tells us where it was loaded from. It tells us what arguments were given to it. We see, what time it started, what SID started it, and then basically assigns it, is this process malware or not? So we get a little risk index, And we see a number of negative factors, so we can tell what volatility thinks. Like, what's wrong? Well, it has a whole bunch of unsigned drivers in this case. And that's something that it considers bad. You want signed drivers. Things that are going good for it, it loads a bunch of regular drivers. So same thing with FTK. Interesting, it says that it's got an 87% chance that this is malware for FTK. It's not. So just Explorer.exe is what typically your Windows desktop is. LSAS is your local security subsystem. So this right here is when you Control Delete, press login. That's normal. You should only have one LSAS on your system ever. If you see two LSASs, that's a bad thing, right? That's like somebody who's trying to be sneaky, or they might have named it like one SAS, so it looks like LSAS. And so what were those ones we're interested in? Solitaire.exe, and see, if we look right here, and I'm not sure if you can see that or not, depending on if it's full screen, but the path says it's running out of downloads. So it's not the regular solitaire.exe, and that's something we do know, which is very interesting. And so what else do we have going on? We got no digital signature, and then we see it's loading a whole bunch of crypt. Why on earth would Solitaire need encryption routines, right? Let's look at iTunes. Again, iTunes, it actually doesn't think it's that negative, which is interesting. This is, by the way, the malware that Alissa made with Metasploit. So Alissa actually, I think she encoded 3 backdoors into a single payload, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, it didn't even flag. So none of these processes actually flagged. But we can see roughly, it tells us what the PID number is. It tells us everything about it, in terms of what was loaded and whatnot. We can also look at things. Oh, so do you want to talk on any of this? Is there anything you want to point out? I mean, for me, this is a nice GUI. It's a really nice way to look and see. If you don't know much about a process list, this is a really nice, friendly way to explore a process list after the fact. The other thing you can do is you can look at all the network ports and connections, and so we can see some of that same stuff we saw earlier. LSAS. We see all of these connections right here to what's probably a mail server. Or is that? All right. I'm going to minimize. So anyways, redline's a really nice tool for doing memory analysis, especially if you're not very good with command line tools. And it's easy to download, and it's free. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
All right, I'm gonna flip through the slides here. Thank you, Nick, for covering the for covering Redline. Yeah, so if you couldn't see, I was to pointed out the same things that we noted in the past. It's just the port 80 and port 443. That's really cool, but we saw something totally a little different. We didn't see the same. I'll have to look at the PIDs. But no need to analyze now. That's what I like to do is, oh my God, let's dive into that rabbit hole. But most notably here, what we've done is taken some of the times that we thought were pertinent to the next step of the investigation and added them to the timeline, because the host base is next, right? The person that does the host base analysis needs this. It's nice to have a timeline to see, okay, when did the malicious activity happen or start happening on the drive. And of course, they want file names. So we've added to the timeline, of course, the startup time, what we were able to gain from this memory image dump, the start of the malicious notepad, the login, and when iTunes started up. So some things that might help out with the next portion of the analysis. All right, so that is the next portion, hard drive forensics. Yeah. We had a lot of fun doing this. Again, we had a lot of work.
A lot of work.
We had fun.
A lot of work. This is where
so
everybody else
what we were able to hand
this is the hard stuff now.
figurative
There's so much stuff on the freaking hard drive.
host-based analysis person was a time frame, like I said, the 10th to the 11th of April, certain activities, we gave them the timeline. This is all like the fictitious scenario, but initial vector of infection we actually had. And when do you ever have that? Dude, come on. Oh, how big was the hard drive you handed out? Oh, how big was the hard drive image we handed out? Was it like, it was small, but it was raw. I know it was like a raw image file. We didn't do an EO1.
Actually,
and we uploaded it like that.
I think it was a 20 gig. Actually, I think I
the smallest that Windows 7 would allow.
I compressed it down to 6 gigs. But I think it was a 20 gig. No, it was 15, I think. 15 or 20 gigs.
Oh, so Corey's asking what command did I use to encode multiple EXEs. It was I was just about to type it in. Look, I'll hit enter.
Yeah, we could find it
over here. I used MSF Venom. Yeah. So of course, the support of the online community and almost as excellent as the DFIR community, right? But the pen tester community has all kinds of forums out there, and we were able to find how to layer the exploit. Yeah. So thank you, Nick. So that actually combines the MSF payload command and the MSF encode, and sure enough, not to do the big reveal, but Microsoft Security Essentials didn't pick it up. So that was like, oh, that was awesome, because that was my backdoor, as you will see. So these are the things I'm actually looking for as the forensics person on the hard drive. Solitaire.exe. I'm probably going to find a legitimate version of that too, based on the version the user is using. I think we had an ultimate image. So ultimate comes with solitaire. So now I'm like, how am I going to tell the two apart? What's legitimate, what's not? iTunes, again, I might run into a problem where there's a couple different iTunes on there, and of course the random executable. You guys are not scared off by there being multiple copies of the same the same file name. Anyways, but questions that we wanted answered, and some of these do align with our score sheet. So what was the antivirus? We asked people to find what antivirus was running on the system, just based on what processes you see running or what entries were in the registry. And then did it actually alert on any of the files? The users are admitting to nothing, right? So did he see an alert? Did antivirus tell him that something was awry when he was trying to execute that solitaire that he got via email? So we're interested in that. Was there a method of persistence, and what was it employed for the backdoor? And was R. Bloom the sole recipient of the email? People, when there's a bad email attachment, people are like totally interested in finding out how many copies were sent out. Was this one user, our only user that received the email? And typically, that's an easy thing that's handled by the people at the Exchange server, right? Or anyways, so that was one thing I wanted to know. I wanted the people in our session to find the email if they could on the hard drive. And then the next thing was there sensitive data? Like if data was being exfiltrated, what could have been exfiltrated from the system? Oftentimes very hard to find out what actually left, unless you're looking through the network traffic. But I'm interested in what could have left. So there we go. I've probably raised a lot of questions there. Oh, thanks for that. Awesome. Thank you, Corey. So what were they able to find and where for antivirus installed? You can see written in the software key, easy find. Easy, that was like a 100-point question, I think. And then you could see that it was in the run. So that was set to start up every time someone logged in. Excellent. So that was an easy find. And then what was a little bit more difficult was whether antivirus kicked off, because this antivirus was writing right to the system log, event log, and I was able to find, you wouldn't think, but sure enough, it went off and the user ignored it. Like Security Essentials alarmed on one of the downloads. You can see it's Solitaire 1 with the bracket, if you're looking at the slide, .exe, and sure enough, it went off, and yet it still infected the system. That was found running to be the malicious process. So the user must have allowed or ignored or like tried to download it again.
Well, we'll find out later why you probably ignored it. And we'll find out later out there's a reason why he probably ignored it, because there might have been a little social engineering in that email. And actually, we could have seen that in the packet capture.
So we throw that into the timeline, or we're looking at the timeline again, adding that system event log entry as to when Solitaire was downloaded from the webmail, and that was detected. So that's like, okay, another bullet on our timeline. Tell me more. One of the questions was, tell me more about the iTunes. What do you see? When was that file created on the drive? Another point that was notable, we knew the malicious iTunes.exe was running from the system32 folder. So tell me what the file creation time was of that. And we were able to find it fit right into our timeline of being on the 10th at 2:20. I think that's the next slide. Is that, and the method of persistence. I chose the common registry value software Microsoft Windows current version. Did you mouse something? And yeah, the best ever, right? So effective. So actually, the run key was where I chose to put it. So if you were to look closer at maybe another time, maybe another memory dump, and see this one firing off, because I don't think we saw iTunes start immediately after the user logged in that instance that we were looking at. I'll have to look again, go back. But typically you'd see that. The user logs in, and then anything that's associated with this current version run key, you'd see startup. That was probably present. I know that Solitaire and iTunes started shortly after he logged in. So very cool. And we can see when that key was last modified, and that is after the creation time. You can see that's almost a day after the creation time of iTunes, the malicious iTunes on the drive. So persistence was later, a day later. Oh yeah, so I'm like switching tools, like a wild woman. I'm switching tools.
To do this.
So this is Access Data's registry viewer, which is sweet, and it's in demo mode, and highly effective. But that's a really cool thing to note. Last time that key was written to, and you can see that was on the 11th. All right, adding these things to the timeline. One happened on the 10th, one happened on the 11th. I'm really able to paint a better picture of what attacker was doing. The next thing I talk about is how many versions of Solitaire were on this. I hashed all of the versions of Solitaire.exe regardless of their location. And I was able to, you can see the ones that are in green are the legitimate solitaire versions. Just based on where they are located on the drive, you can tell those are the legitimate ones. And the user played these like crazy with the solitaire player, fanatic. But I can also see there's 4 versions that match, that have a different hash. And they're in all different locations. You can see the temporary internet files has one, and then I think there's one in the downloads folder. Yeah, downloads. So kind of indicative of the user trying to use different techniques and repeatedly trying to download, but different techniques, like downloads folder is Firefox, right? So just right-clicking and downloading would put that in the Firefox, and then just clicking straight away from like webmail would send it to temporary internet files. Anyways, that's kind of interesting. That's crazy. There's 4 copies of the same malicious file on the drive. So yeah, that's what I'm going to take with me. That's the hash value for the malicious solitaire.exe. And a lot of this makes sense when you have your scoreboard in front of you. You're like, damn, there's the answer. So perfect. We can ask the questions that we have answers for. Has Ncase reported the same? Oh no. Yeah. Let's go back to the Microsoft Games, the C, and the program files. Microsoft Games. Yeah. Amazing. That's strange that they would show up twice. But yeah, that is the same one. Clearly, the path matches. I think that's the only duplicate I have there. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for pointing that out. Oh, you know what? You attended too. You attended you attended our challenge too. So clearly, you've had tons of time to look at this. So don't feel bad, the rest of you guys who are in attendance, that you didn't catch that. That was like an Easter egg error. Okay, so time and date stamps for the malicious solitaire. We're really starting to tie these things together. This would be the version that Security Essentials caught, and I'm able to see when it was created on the drive. The version that allowed the initial exploit, just based on what I'm seeing, based on what I'm seeing in the network packet capture and that timeline. And then you can see a couple more times that the user tried to run it, and those were created later. So I'm putting them in the order, the creation time order. Yeah, how realistic is this scenario, right? I don't know. Do users continue to infect themselves? Yes. I almost visited the same website twice today that had some malicious content on it. Hell yeah! Someone told me to go there, so I was like, well, it didn't work the first time. Someone told me I was the man now. Shoot. All right, so on to more cool stuff. I love looking at prefetch. Love talking about it. But the prefetch for iTunes shows that it's been run 3 times, and this would be illegitimate iTunes coming from the System32 folder. This tool I used was Red Wolf. What was this one called? Just the prefetch parser tool that they have, which is really cool. Everyone knows I'm a big fan of TZWorks. I think I have a screenshot of their tool up next, or maybe not. This is showing me when the prefetch file was created. So the first time this iTunes that was found in this folder was run, that would be reflective of the file created, the prefetch file created. And then last time it was modified would be reflective of the last time it was run. So you see all of these run times are on the 11th. Really interesting. I find it really interesting because I saw that the file was created on the 10th, if you guys remember that. So it was run for the first time on the 11th. Wild.
Sure. So here we did. So we wanted to use log to timeline. So this really, we were using this forensics challenge as sort of a tour de force of all kinds of tools that are out there that can help you analyze files and see the data from different perspectives. So we wanted to use log to timeline and Rob Lee's color coding Excel spreadsheet. So we sort of combined the two into a massive spreadsheet, which takes forever to load. But once you have it, it's really cool. You can just start sorting on set your source to be prefetch or set your type to be last run or whatever. And so what we started doing is looking at the date timestamps that we found previously. And so we see here Windows, a prefetch for iTunes.exe running. And so that tells us the first time that it looks like it was run. And then we found more copies of this later on. And so let me see here. I guess that's the only slide we have for log to timeline. We did pre-make that and make it available for everybody. You're welcome to use it or try it out. If you've never seen log to timeline output with color coding, that link that we put up on the side, feel free to download it. It's pretty cool, and it can really drown you in data. But you might be able to find something if you have a clue of when something happened, sort by time, and see what happened right before or right after the events you're interested in. You might find something new or find some more causality. Yeah, and then like I said, we see here that iTunes.exe is running out of System32. Real iTunes would be running out of Apple iTunes in program files. And so we're going to add that to our sort of timeline of what happened. And so the whole time we're doing this, we're trying to isolate events that seem important and sort of put them into a logical order so that we can say, all right, we know what happened. We know at this time the dude downloaded a file. At this time, a few minutes later, he allowed it through his antivirus. And at this time, we see he ran it in the prefetch key. Then a registry key was created, creating persistence. And then we see a malicious iTunes.exe start. So we can start building up like a full timeline of the whole exploitation and really do a good job with incident response. So I think next here,
another free version here.
Alissa used access data TK and
so
tell you about
I was able to drop in the PST that was on the image and look through what I could see, and I did find the email. This was the original email that contained the attachment. And how often, he was checking his mail both using Outlook as a client and going to the webmail, and you can figure that out. That was kind of crazy. Outlook 2010 would not have let him download this at all. This executable, solitaire.exe, would not have been allowed him to execute it, download it, view the attachment at all. So that's probably why he went over to use the webmail interface, a little bit less restrictive in that regard. But this actually says, I came across, it was like, hi Rick. So Rick is R. Bloom, that's his first name. So this is from P. Turner at crazychinchilla.com. Hi Rick, I came across this cool version of Solitaire. I thought you might like. The cards have MMA fighters on them with real-time statistics from, and then she gives a URL. So, okay, I have attached this game to this email. Let me know if you have any trouble running it. So it's from P. Turner. So actually, P. Turner works at Crazy Chinchilla also. So it's exactly targeted to what he would be interested in because Paige knows that he plays Solitaire all the time and that he's a crazy MMA fanatic. So this is like a highly targeted email, and that's why, number one, it wouldn't be suspicious to the user if he saw any kind of network activity due to running solitaire.exe because it's supposed to be beaconing out to this website to get real-time statistics on the MMA fighters. So I kind of folded that in. But this is the email, and this would have answered one of their questions. Was R. Bloom the only recipient? And in fact, he was, based on this email that contained the attachment. We also saw him responding to this email in the network packet capture. So that was kind of cool. And answering the question, were any sensitive data files contained on this hard drive? Yes, we were able to find some information, salary information and home addresses for all the employees. And this file was in two places, and one of them was the true firing list. So he was getting ready to fire a bunch of people, and he had actually deleted this file or put it in his recycle bin. Again, answering some of the questions that were in our column, our host-based analysis column. I asked people to find an image, a hidden image file that was in one of the spreadsheets. So embedded in the spreadsheet is is it a PNG file? I think that's what it was. And you can just barely see it there. See, you guys are not even in front of the computer, and you're probably able to be like, there it is, there's the image. But sure enough, how many of our attendees were able to find that thing? I tell you what, Nick. Mm-hmm. Anyways, no, it was hard. It was hard. Oh, yeah. Well, those new spreadsheets. They're like compound documents. You
I
have to
thought
know
they'd
how
find it
to
immediately
expand them
within
and
case.
parse for embedded images. It's not easy. Friggin', it's not easy. So, what else do we have? I asked how many users have logged in to Battlecade, the system, and I was able to show them that, hey, our Bloom actually logged in the first time, and you can see here that the middle of the SID is different from the other two profiles as being shown in the profile list here. Well, this was a local, and these two were domain, and he actually got compromised using his local account, and then later tried to run Solitaire under his domain account. So very interesting. You're going to find artifacts in both profiles of this activity. We asked when was a USB inserted, when was the incident responder's USB inserted, and we were really just trying to push them to find this new file name, right? In Windows 7 now it's called the setup api.dev.log, and I'd say a few people found it. A few people found when this USB was inserted. Again, adding this to our timeline, that's when the incident responder hit the box. You also look at this file for maybe things that the user might have done. Imagine that. We did look at shell bags. No. You go ahead.
Heck yeah. Oh, these ones killed us. I don't know if you want to tell a story about that. Alissa told me how cool shell bags are in Windows 7, and I was stunned at how awesome, like, you run your sbags.exe, and it freaking tells you everything. So we actually created this challenge. We've been using this image for a week as a regular person. We exploited it. We're doing all of our stuff. We're doing our incident response. And then Alissa took like her hard drive, a little USB hard drive, to do the memory dump. And we were analyzing the dump, and we found like all kinds of references to, folders that were stored on our hard drive that we did not look at, that we did not in any way access. Windows must have like proactively gone through and spidered them, because I found that stuff in the memory dump, and then we found it in the hard drive dump, and we couldn't get rid of it. Even if we deleted it, it would have still been. All you forensics people would have found our heavy-handed like zeroing out of the bytes. So we ended up having to redo this entire challenge. It was like a week's worth of work that we wasted because of these freaking shell bags. But it was a good learning experience. So then when we created the next USB drive for the incident response, what we did is we made a whole bunch of folders that looked like real incident response. So you'll see ones called like incident response and stuff like this, and that's reflected in the shell bag. So that was. Oh
no, I was horrified
really
to
nice
find my name throughout our first attempt to build a machine, and then create images off of it. I found my last name, my first name. I was like, what? So yeah, dude, it's not easy to build a clean image, and I know. And this was just over a week. Imagine trying to keep it clean for a year and a half or something. Really hard to do. Luckily, we already had a domain and a network set up. The infrastructure was already in place, so how can you screw that up? I don't know. I did though. So it created a lot of work. So the fun stuff, the bonus, what we have remaining to talk about. I know it's getting late. It's almost 9:30. But what we have remaining to talk about are the bonus material, which is totally fun stuff to look at and to ask people to find. And then we're going to kind of do the big reveal as what we had intended the scenario to be, and then where we like found holes, huge holes, right? And we haven't even told a TCP joke yet, Nick. You haven't told a TCP joke yet. Do you have any? Hello?
Terrible.
Oh, that's right. Thanks for that, Harlan. So there are only.
Although I think I saw one on
I can't even
Twitter,
say that. I'll save it for after the first slide. But I have a couple that are prepared for this. She's like, no, don't do jokes. Okay, this is a screenshot of Bloom's desktop. So he was a madman playing solitaire and watching MMA videos. And of course, if you're looking at the hard drive, you'd be able to see all this. artifacts of this left everywhere. We asked people to show typed URLs, and I said, dude, I didn't specify which profile to look at. And sure enough, some people were able to show me typed URLs from both profile. That was just like a explore the registry question, probably like what, a 100 level. So they were able to master that. The next challenge I put before them is find the embedded image. I was telling you guys about that, and that's Ncase finding it, and it was kind of distorted and corrupted. But Ncase did, in fact, hook me up with finding it, and that's what I used the case processor to, after I had already mounted that, what was it, Excel spreadsheet. I was able to pick that out, so that was very good. Solitaire statistics were befuddling to most people who attended, and actually, if you go to the Microsoft Games folder, there's an XML file that's like solitaire.xml, and that hard to parse, man. People were pissed off. They found that file, but they when trying to view it, it was cryptic. And I'm not just because it was XML, but it was how the viewer was parsing this XML file. So what I did to get this excellent image here was to overwrite my own, because I had an Ultimate Machine just laying around. So I overwrote the XML file that was present on my system, and I was able to parse this correctly. So I was able to find out, how good our Bloom was at playing solitaire. But it comes back to like sometimes you just have to use the native viewer to friggin' parse these files and get this stuff. So yeah, I was like, dude, what a good example.
Maybe somebody will write an awesome like log to timeline plugin that'll tell them when they played solitaire and what their percentages are. You never know when it'll be useful. What if somebody?
So a bunch of TCP packets walk into a bar, and the bartender says, "Hang on just a second. I need to close the window." No? Okay, fine. You suck. He didn't even laugh. I've laughed. It's been 8 months of laughing at his jokes, and he can't even afford to laugh tonight. So other things that we planted in this image were, this was my first exposure to Courage Wolf, and it really hit me. It cut me deep. Whatever. It left its mark. To the point where I have Courage Wolf hanging in my cubicle now. But really kind of cool. I love Courage Wolf, and the attacker actually uploaded 3 image files, and you can see different directories here. But I asked people to find these Courage Wolf images. None of them are named, or the extensions don't match the image file. But a really low obstacle for us forensics people. We were able to pick out images just by doing carving. Yeah. Oh yeah. So, but the unique point here is this one right here. The take drug test 100%. The under radar tar file. You see how it's actually located in the virtual store. I can kind of explain the back end. I was as the attacker. I had shell in the box, and I was trying to put it in System 32, which is a protected space on a Windows 7 box. So it didn't let me, because I didn't have system privileges. I was just on as the user because the user had run solitaire and given me shell. I didn't have admin privileges, or I couldn't write to this protected area. So I was actually diverted and wrote to virtual store Windows. That's kind of crazy, man. So I was like, damn, I've never seen that before. But sure enough, like if you see, I'll probably show you, when you write to this area, it's like a fail. So it created something in a UAC file virtualization. This is actually an event log. Windows 7 has these crazy event logs, man. So this is an event log, and this was the sole entry. Event 4000 says that this file was written as a virtual file. And you can see that's very unique. But looking at log2 timeline, we did use it a second time. You can see, if you get really close to your screen, that this is the under radar file being written here to virtual store, and the next few things that happen, if you come down here and see the temp and all of these randomly named executables, this is when the attacker said, crap, I can't write to where I want to write to put my toolkit where I want to put it. I'm actually going to do a UAC bypass, and this is an artifact of the UAC bypass being run on a Windows 7 system. UAC, like a necessary step now with the user account control requiring the escalation of privileges. It's not easy anymore on like it was on a Windows XP box. So that's kind of neat.
Sure. All right. Just to point out, we're saying UAC bypass, like everybody understands what that is, but uh, so if somebody exports, they get on the computer, they export the computer. Windows 7 has all these protections, and so what happens is to escape those protections, Metasploit actually has modules that will bypass UAC, but it's really dirty. It uploads several executables, and it calls you back, and it leaves a lot of logs, and that's why we see all those randomly named files. So if you see a bunch of randomly named files like that, that's probably a bad sign. All right, so hard drive disk forensics. What were the solutions? So what happened? What happened is Mr. Bloom was a top executive, and you could actually go onto Facebook, and he has a Facebook poster, a Facebook page, and he actually talks about, he's planning on firing a whole bunch of people, and he's planning on all this. So, what happened was Paige Turner, he was probably aware that something like this was going to happen, and decided to hack Rick Bloom's computer. And so Paige knew that, Rick was, pretty lazy and played solitaire all day, so Paige emails him really a targeted backdoor, and uses some social engineering to make him think, oh yeah, no, don't worry if it connects to the internet, it's getting statistics or something. So he downloads solitaire.exe, he tries very hard to get it to work, and it never works. So the second attempt to get it to work actually does work, and Paige was really handy and said, oh, if it doesn't work, just let me know and I'll get it to you some other way, and we saw that in the email. And then what happens is the network packet capture shows Paige performing an ARP scan. So maybe Paige was trying to frame him, maybe trying to make him look bad like he was hacking other computers, or maybe Paige was trying to expand and find more information. So then the very next day, Paige runs those tools to escalate the privileges, and to escalating the privileges was the UAC bypass. And so Keydad asked, what sort of logs does UAC bypass leave? I don't have all of them memorized offhand, but basically what you have is several file uploads. So you're going to find several things inside of your prefetch, and by default, you're going to see an executable called tior.exe, tior.exe. That's one you'll always find when UAC bypass was used, unless they've changed the way it works. And then you're also going to see 3 other randomly generated files, all in quick succession. And then you're going to see a new TCP connection going back to whatever computer was the one that exploited it. So a little technical, but yeah. And then there will also be logs inside of the registry, but I don't have those memorized. So anyways, we see iTunes.exe gets run from System32. So then Paige searches for the files, finds them, and starts exfiltrating the proprietary employee list. Starts downloading them, and she obviously was fearing a layoff. So later, security team actually performed some incident response, and this is a pretty clever thing that Alissa did to show something. Basically, they performed incident response. They grabbed a netstat, process list, system info, test list, but they logged in as the domain admin on a box that they suspected was hacked. And that has some really severe consequences. And the attacker was actually able to dump the domain admin credentials, which can be used in the future.
No, these are my Metasploit shells on the box.
All?
I'm so excited by this. Yay! Anyways, but yeah, we talked about this is the ARP scan that was being run, and what showed up in the network packet capture. So that's kind of just showing everyone what the meterpreter, what the attacker saw from the meterpreter. The other thing really points to what Mike Wilkinson has been talking about on all of his articles that he posted on the forensics blog, SANS forensics blog. So yeah, it really drove home that I was able to do a cache dump, which is dumping network credentials from the compromised system. And this is from a meterpreter. I'm doing a cache dump, and then I have presence on the box as the attacker, and the incident responder does a PS exec, which is something we used to use all the time to drop the NK servlet normally we didn't have to spell out our credentials, but when it didn't work, we had to spell out our credentials. So you see here the username and the password is being specified, and this is just to bring up a command prompt, a remote on the remote system, and incident responders might do this. So after the PS exec was executed, you can see I did a cache dump again and was able to get the administrators. That's the domain admins hash. So I already have an interpreter shell, so I could just go ahead and pass the hash and move laterally to other machines, all on the domain, move to the domain controller. Most likely I'd be able to get onto anything I wanted to. So that was kind of cool. But again, Mike Wilkinson talked about it, and that's kind of what piqued my interest. I'm like, let me see if I can do this on the box. So it really drove it home to be able to do that, right here in the office. What are you doing in your office? Did you want to have any parting shots, Nik? I think we've kept them. You guys have been so polite.
Yeah, it was a big learning experience for both of us, I think, and it was good. And hopefully we can show you a couple of tools we use.
Any questions
that you could maybe use in your forensicating?
Everyone fell asleep. That's what it is. Everyone fell asleep.
Lynn raised a hand.
Thank you very much.
Lynn, you can just type in either of the chat sessions if you've got a question.
Oh, we got a chance to present this at our local hacker unallocated space locally, and it was totally interesting to present to different audiences, and that's one thing we wanted to say was presenting to them. Sure enough, they noticed the version of the command line, right? The version of the command window came up, and they're like, dude, that machine's not patched. And like they knew straight away just by the version that was running in the command window that it was a Service Pack 0, Windows 7. So that was really kind of cool. Different audiences noticed different things, but presenting at CEIC, a lot of people I think shied away from being challenged. The whole challenge in the title. So if you're doing this, just note the audience you're posing this challenge to. Sometimes you'll have greater success if you aim it toward an audience that thinks this way. It just seems like the hacker community, pen testing community, does a lot more challenges than the forensics community. So that's kind of why we wanted to get in on action and see how well it would work. But I think we're kind of new to it still in forensics. Yeah, I see push buttons. Dude, but we tore it up, didn't we? We were teaching them some stuff, so that was very good.
I've said I posted it, I think, all over the list today, that like this was my favourite session at CEIC, and it was really good. And the thing I really took away from it, like you guys solved the problems one way, but then you'd see other people come out with solutions that were not what you'd thought of. It's coming up with the same sort of answers, but using different tools in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I just think, like, you're dealing with computers. There's 1,000 ways to do anything. And all the different tools we got, there's so many different ways of doing it, and it's really good to see people sharing or have the opportunity to share different ways of solving the same problem. Which brings me to my next point, which is what I would really like to do is run this live as a DFIR online session where everyone gets the image in advance to play around with. You're running it on your own system with your own tools, but you get presented with a challenge. You've got to answer the questions and everything else, and then provide feedback on how you went about solving the problem. And I guess Alissa and Nik are not quite so sure about it, maybe. It's a hell of a lot of work to set up, and the amount of work these guys put into setting this up really blows my mind, because they did a really good job, and you heard how they suddenly found their own names on the drives and everything else, and then went through and redid it all. I've done this sort of stuff before, and I really appreciate the amount of time that goes into it, and it is certainly not trivial. But of the people that are still left, can we just get a show of hands? If you click on your name, you can put your hand up. Would you be interested in actually participating live in this sort of challenge? Maybe if we didn't call it challenge, if we call it something else, you've got to leave your hands up so we can get a count. We have 4 people that are keen. Is that all? 5. Will the numbers go up anymore? So no, either other people can't put their hands up, to
Oh,
7.
there we go.
See, I reckon I would like to do it. I think it'd be really good. So, thanks you two.
Yeah, you know what we can do is we'll just have to find a place where we can store. I'd say it's probably, if I use the compressed files that I have, about 11 gigs.
Yeah, I've
My
actually
Dropbox
got
can't handle
access to a
that.
bit of online storage at the moment. As long as no one from college
Mm-hmm.
tells them about it, I can sort some stuff out. But we can do that. We can arrange that. So the date which we were talking about, just while I've got you guys here, you are being recorded now. We're locking. Is October, I believe. Extra credit. Yeah, mate, I don't give extra credit. No such thing. So October 18, everyone write it down in your diaries. October 18, I've got to update my website and move them back. October 18, we're going to have a live challenge.
We'll make it happen.
I'm going to try and organise some prizes.
Nik will make it happen. And I'll supervise. We'll make sure that Nik does that.
Always infrastructure.
Okay, so very much
Good. Maybe the pack mule for forensics. The forensic pack mule.
Okay. Well, I think we can leave the chat going for a little bit. And teaching in Seattle. Is it a SANS course, Hal? If it's a SANS course, maybe you can get all your course attendees to come along and join in. Malware. We'll make it a malware image. It's part of the class. It's a challenge. We can get everyone downloading malware and running it on their computers. See how many people we can get infected at once. I wonder if we could write something that actually logs a chat message when they get infected. Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much, both of you two. I really liked it. I think you've done a great job here, and it's awesome work, really awesome work. And thanks to V as well. She stuck off, getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning just to come along and give a presentation. I think it's pretty impressive, and you can tell how engrossed I am because I'm sitting here in the dark, and I've only just realised I can turn a light on now. It was bright. It was sunlight when I started. Now it's all dark. I didn't notice. But yeah.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
It's been awesome. So thank you very much. October 18th. No worries. It was a pleasure. I'll leave it at that.